This lesson is over how to divide a fraction by a fraction. Let's look at our number routine of how do you know. So we started off with 4 circles. So you have 4 divided by 2/3 is equal to 4 times 3/2. How do you know that these two are equivalent? Before you start talking about the mathematics, let's look at the pictorial model. So we have 4 holes. I would like to split them into thirds. Split them into thirds. Split them into thirds. And split them into thirds. So I just split them into thirds. So I started with 4, let me use a different pen color. I started with 4 circles and I split them into thirds. How many pieces do I have so far? 4 times 3 is 12. Now, I need to figure out how many 2/3 go into 4. So I need to divide them or group them into, use the highlighter, group them into 2. This is a group. This is a group. This is a group. This is a group of, so it's 2/3, 2/3, 2/3, 2/3. Let's use another highlighter. Let's use another highlighter. Let's use this one. This is 2/3. This is a group of 2/3. So how many groups of 2/3 you see here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 groups of 2/3. So I group them into 2s. So in other words, I divide it by 2. So notice how this multiplication expression is equivalent to this division expression. So I started with 4, and then I started with 4 circles, and I split them into thirds. So now I have 12 pieces. 4 times 3 is 12. Then I found groups of 2. 12 divided 2 is 6. Some of you are going to say, I don't like the pictorial model. Can I just keep the 4? I multiply by the reciprocal of 2/3 to 3/2. And what's 4 times 3? 12. 12 divided by 2 is 6. So, do now. Lana has 30 cupcakes. How many pieces will she have? She divides them into fourths. So she has 30 cupcakes. She wants to divide these into fourths. So in other words, she has 30 cupcakes. Each cupcake is cut into 4 parts. So 30 times 4 is 120. If we use the mathematics of reciprocal, multiply by its reciprocal, we keep the 30. We multiply, what's the reciprocal of 1/4? 4, 1. So 30 times 4 is 120. 120 divided by 1 is 120. So let's use pictorial model, and then we're going to use pictorial model to help explain the mathematics of why multiply by its reciprocal works. So we have 4/5 as noted. They said divide them into 2 groups. So I'm going to divide it into 2 groups. Here's one group. Here's another group. So each group is equal to 2/5. Could I have gotten that another way? So I started with 4/5, as noted. I multiply by its reciprocal, which is 1/2, and you get 4/10. What does that simplify to? 2/5. That is the same answer as the pictorial model. So in other words, when you divide by 2, you're really doing half of it. Because I started with 4/5 divided to 2 groups. Am I splitting it in half in other words? So dividing 2 is the same thing as saying multiply by 1/2. So you have 9/10. It says divide them into 3 equal groups. That's one group. Here's a second group. Here's a third group. So the answer is 3/10. Let's look at our example. You have 2/5. It says divide it into 4 equal groups. Let's see. If I divide these into 4 equal groups, it says divide them into 4 equal groups. That means this would be one group. This will be one group. This would be one group. This will be another group. Can I exchange this so I can actually see what fraction that is? Let's look at 1/10. 1/10. 1/10. So I can exchange 2/5 or rename it as 4/10. So if you have 2/5 or 4/10 and you divide it into 4 equal groups, the answer is 1/10. Next example, I have 2/3. It says divide it into 4 perfectly good groups. That's one group. This is 2 groups, 3 groups, and group 4. What fraction can you rename that as? Let's look at it. Is it the 6? Let's see if 6 is it. Yep. It is the 6. So the answer is 1/6. To check my work, let's look at multiply by its reciprocal. When you divide by a fraction, you multiply by its reciprocal. We started with 2/3. We are multiplying by the reciprocal. What's the reciprocal of 4? 1/4. Because how can you rewrite 4 in fraction form? You put a 1 underneath it. So you get 2/12, which simplified to 1/6. And that's the same answer through the pictorial model and through multiply by its reciprocal. So let's try some more example. How many groups? So you have 1/2, note it right here. I want to divide them into fourths. In other words, asking how many fourths can build into 1/2. How many fourths will fit into 1/2? As you can tell, the answer is 2. How could I have gotten the answer without using pictorial model? You have 1/2, and I'm multiplying by its reciprocal, which is 4/1, and you get 4/2 or just 2. Same answer, pictorial and through its mathematics. I have 1/3. I want to divide it into by 1/12. How many 12ths go into 1/3? How many 12ths can build 1/3? From what I can tell, 4 groups of 1/12. So the answer is 4. Next example, you have 3/5 divided by 1/10. How many 1/10 can build into 3/5? 1/10, 2/10, 3 groups of 1/10, 4 groups of 1/10, 5 groups of 1/10, 6 groups of 1/10. So the answer is 6. Some of you may prefer the mathematics of multiply by reciprocal. So we started with 3/5, noted by the green blocks. I multiply by the reciprocal. What's the reciprocal of 1/10? 10/1. If I multiply the numerators, you get 30. If I multiply the denominators, you get 5. What's 30 divided by 5? 6. That's the answer. So next example, we have 1/2. They want you to divide this into eighths. How many groups of 1/8 do you see? I see 4 groups of 1/8, so the answer is 4. And last but not least, I see 8/10. How many groups of 2/5 will build into this? This is one group of 2/5. Here is a second group of 2/5. Let me, using my pen, let me show you that is the so. So it's one group of 2/5, two groups of 2/5. So the answer is 2. What if you do not like the pictorial model and you rather use the mathematics of this? So what did we start with? We started with 8/10. We are multiplying by its reciprocal. What's the reciprocal of 2/5? 5/2. So if you multiply the numerator, you get 40. If you multiply the denominators, you get 20. The answer is 2. So, as you know, I've been using the word reciprocal when we divided a whole number by a fraction, and we're dividing by a fraction. So if you do not know how to find a reciprocal, you're going to have a really difficult time. So again, what is a reciprocal? Before you say, oh, you just flip the numerator with the denominator. No, that's not what it is. That's how you do it. A reciprocal is when you have two numbers, and you multiply those two numbers, and it equals one whole. So in other words, you have to start with a number, and you're multiplying by another value to get 1. So you're doing the opposite. You're doing the inverse of it. For example, if you start with 1/5, if I multiply by 5/1, it cancels out to 1 whole. So the reciprocal of 1/5 is 5/1. What is the reciprocal of 3/4? It is 4/3. Because if you multiply, 3 times 4 is 12, and 4 times 3 is 12. That's 1 whole. It cancels out. Inverse. What's the reciprocal of 7/8? 8/7. What is the reciprocal of 9? Before you said, like I say, the reciprocal of 9 is 9/1. If you multiply 9/1 times 9/1, that's 81/1. That does not equal 1. That does not cancel. The reciprocal is 1/9. Again, how do you rewrite 9 in fraction form? 9/1, or 9 divided by 1. So the reciprocal is 1/9. What's the reciprocal of 12? Well, 12 can be rewritten as 12/1 in fraction form, so the reciprocal must be 1/12. What is the reciprocal of 10? 1/10. Now let's get a little tougher. What's the reciprocal of 7 1/3? Let's rewrite this in fraction form or improper fraction form. That'd be 22/3. So the reciprocal of it would be 3/22. And for this example, what's the reciprocal? So 6 and 2/5, that would be 32/5. What is the reciprocal of 32/5? 5/32. Now that we understand the reciprocal, we will use that knowledge to help us to divide fraction because we multiply by its reciprocal. So you have half of a pizza, and you want to share it equally between two people. How much of the pizza does each person get? So you have half of a pizza, you're dividing into two equal parts. In other words, you're just giving half of the pizza away to each person? So start with half. You're multiplying by its reciprocal because I want to rewrite the problem as an equivalent multiplication expression. What's the reciprocal of 2? Let's see. 2, 1. So the reciprocal is 1/2. So 1/2 times 1/2 is 1/4. So each person will get 1/4 of the pizza. If you must see the picture, here's half of the pizza. You're dividing it by 2. So this is 1/4, 1/4. A baker is making cakes for a big party. She uses 1/4 cup of oil for each cake. So each cake makes 1/4, 1/4, 1/4. How many cakes can she make if she has a bottle of oil that has 6 cups in it? So she started with 6 cups. She's dividing it into fourths. Again, repeated subtraction is really division. So I want to rewrite this as a multiplication expression. So I keep the first number. I multiply by the reciprocal. So what's the reciprocal of 1/4? 4/1. So the answer is 24. So think about it. If you have 6 cakes and you divide them into fourths, each one into fourths, they're going to be 24 pieces. 6 times 4 is 24. The serving size for a granola that Ted likes to eat for breakfast is 3/4 cups. So he eats 3/4 cup of granola every day. or whenever you eat breakfast. How many servings are there in a box that holds 13 cups? So we started with 13 cups. We're dividing it into 3/4. Or think of repeated subtraction. He eats 3/4 on this day, 3/4 again, 3/4, 3/4, 3/4. He eats it every day. So that's subtracting, deducting it, dividing. So let's rewrite this as a multiplication expression. So if I have 13 cups and I divide each bowl into fourths, I multiply 13 times 4 would be 52. But then he eats 3 of those fourths. So I divide by 3. So in other words, we just multiply by its reciprocal. So you start with a number, you keep the number, then you multiply reciprocal. So what's 52 thirds? How many groups of 3 go into 52? It goes in 1 time, and then it goes in 7 times, and then you have 1 left over. So 17 and 1/3 is equivalent to 52 thirds. And last but not least, you have half of a pound of sugar left. He needs 1/8 of a pound for each batch of cookie he makes. How many batches of cookie can he make with 1/2 pound? So you start with half of a pound of sugar. You are taking 1/8 from it repeatedly until you have no more. So repeated subtraction is really division. So I keep the 1/2. I multiply by its reciprocal of 8/1, and you get 8/2, or just 4. There are 4 groups of 1/8 that go in half. So in your own words, how do you multiply? So I keep the first number, then I multiply by its reciprocal. So if you had like 1/4 divide by, I don't know, 1/8. So keep 1/4, multiply, what's the reciprocal 1/8? 8/1, and you get 8/2, or just 4. How many 8 go into or build into 1/4? 4 groups of 1/8. This is how you divide by a fraction, or how to divide fractions.